Welcome to Your Tech Report. Mark Aflalo in Montreal, and joined by my guest, Sandeep Panesar, EVP of Strategic Alliances for Turnium Technology Group, also on the Marketing Advisory Council for the Linux Foundation. Sandeep, thank you for joining me on your vacation from beautiful, where is that? In the background, I can kind of see where you are.
Well, I'm in Naramata, BC. So Naramata Bench is where all the wineries are, where all the beautiful sun is, Osoyoos, Okanagan. Like, this is truly where it happens.
Where it happens, and where you happen to be. So let's rewind a bit, okay? Let's rewind before you were on your vacation. Before who knows how your travels were? We can get to that on another show. But Friday,
Absolutely.
A major incident here in Canada, where Rogers Wireless, one of the main three telecommunications companies that I think at this point take for granted, had a major outage that they say is because of a maintenance update gone wrong on a core switch in their network. I know that you can't speak on behalf of Rogers. I can't speak on behalf of Rogers, really just from your own personal experience with the, years and decades of experience in the networking world. Is it plausible that that's what caused an outage of this capacity? And we're talking about cell phone coverage, wireless coverage, landline coverage in Ontario. Could that really be the cause?
So the answer is yes. And I will speak from my personal experience, right? BGP is one of those protocols that just propagates all over the place. And if you let it go wild and you make a mistake, it will screw things up. That's happened to me before. I've taken down a nationwide network, not me personally, but people in the company have taken down a nationwide network, just on that basis. It's happened with iWeb. It's happened with, all Peerless. It's happened with all the service providers. I think the thing that we need to keep in mind here, and I think the thing that's the most important, is that we need to reconsider how we are dealing with business continuity, right? We take connectivity, we take communications for granted. So communications is an essential service, period. Right?
Yeah.
So whether it's 911, whether it's hospitals, whether it's 411, or any of the other government and business services, that's a huge deal. And when those things go down, that's horrible for people, and they're potentially life-threatening challenges that happen for people that are sick. But I think the other thing that's really super important is that we don't realize how much we rely on the internet, how much we rely on communications, Zoom, WebEx, Blue Jeans, whatever the services are, right? And those are the things that keep businesses up. So if that's the way we're treating services, then I personally believe we need to rethink that and reevaluate that.
Now, I found myself in a situation, on Friday where I got downtown. I knew everything was down. Told my wife, okay, I'm leaving. I should be there in about an hour. And I'm looking for parking on Blurry Street in downtown Montreal, and I'm realizing, wait a second, I can't even pay for this. I can't even pay for parking because I have no internet connection on my phone to launch the app to pay for parking. I ended up going to a parking lot where I could get a ticket and pay for it later, and that was all great. Fast forward to 3 hours later, I'm leaving. I make a phone call on Skype because I can use voice over IP.
Mm-hmm.
I get a hold of a landline. I say, okay, I'm leaving. I get in my car. It's great. It says it's going to take me 18 minutes to get home at 5 p.m. on a Friday afternoon in Montreal, which is when my brain clicked and said, wait a second, no one can report anything to Waze, and I'm not getting any of the data. That's why
Correct.
Everything looks clear. It says they're going to be home in 18 minutes. There's no police on the road. It's all awesome. And that's when I started, the snowball effect, and I started realizing, okay, not only were these services that I take for granted down, but I wasn't prepared for it. And I have a responsibility both personally to myself if I want to maintain connectivity like I do at home. I've got multiple carriers at home, but also to my clients. And as much as, yes, Rogers was at fault for what happened to their network, it really made me rethink the way that I had responsibility here. Because if someone's hiring me for a service and my service relies on wireless connectivity, for me to stick my eggs in one basket, that's irresponsible of me. Now, I may have done it because I've never had an issue like this before, but I could tell you now, as of Friday night, I now have 2 wireless carriers on my phone. I've got an account open with Bell with a SIM card that I can pop into another device. But Look at a service like Interac, which is our debit machines here in Canada.
I know, and they're still not working.
They're still not working. They were down all day Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because they're just using Rogers as a carrier? Where does responsibility lie here, right? Because there's so many questions to be asked.
Well, so responsibility lies with the service provider. It's always going to lie with the service provider, but then there's a second level of responsibility, or maybe a primary level of responsibility, where you look at an organization like Interac, where guys, you didn't think about business continuity. That's not Rogers' fault. Yeah. Rogers was always going to go down. TELUS will go down. Bell will go down. Like, it will happen. Marvel went bankrupt. It happens. And so you need backups, period. And so whose responsibility is that? I think the primary responsibility lies with the service provider that is providing the actual service. Right?
So in this case, the Interac Corporation, or me to my clients, at the end of the day, if I choose to use Rogers, it's my fault that I didn't have a backup in place to make sure that I can continue to provide my service to that company.
Yeah, and so let me look at this a different way, right? It's not about fault; it's about not future thinking, right? Yeah, future proofing your network. And this is something that we lost when we had the last .com boom, where security was the first thing that went down. Network was the second thing that went down. And we literally stopped serving those pieces because we wanted to save money. And, we were in a financial crisis at that point, right? Plus the market were collapsing at the time. Yeah. And, we're kind of going through the exact same thing again. Now, if you look at the markets now today, if you look at networking and security, everybody's like, yeah, we don't need it. But the reality is we actually do. So what we want, or what we should be doing, is diversity of network, a disaggregated approach in terms of hardware and how we put things together. Not just hardware, just the entire network stack. So what we do at Turnium is literally you can bundle as many providers as you want together. Yeah. We've done 23 connections and bonded them and done all that kind of stuff, whether it's LTE, 5G, DSL, cable. It really doesn't matter who the last mile provider is. And I think that's what gives you resilience for your business, right? And I think that's a huge deal because it's not something that people think about. We've been trained not to think about it. And in being trained not to think about it, suddenly when you have a single provider that goes down, you're like, oh, snap.
Guess I should have thought of that.
Should have thought of that, right? Yeah. Shoulda, coulda, didn't. Right.
And so I think it's a big wake up call, right? It's a big wake up call to a lot of anybody in this business who relies on wireless connectivity or even hardline connectivity like that. It's a big wake up call. And I think people are going to be reevaluating, I know on a personal level, people reevaluate the carriers and the choices they make and they diversify it.
Yeah, of course.
But I think on the business side of things, people are going to really have, if you're Interac today, you're going, okay, wait a second, we got to fix this. This cannot happen again. This just can't happen because we're just not providing our service to the client. Mm-hmm. Is technology in a place today, and this, of course, you can speak to from the Turnium point of view, that this shouldn't have happened and that we can have the tools at our disposal without spending millions of dollars to make sure that we at least have 2 or 3 options available to us? Is that attainable now, or is that something that's really still far?
No, 100%. That's what we do for a living on a day-to-day basis. We make people's businesses better, and we normalize the network, right? So packet loss, jitter, latency, etc., bonding, failover. Whether it's wireline or wireless, like that's what we do on a day-to-day basis right now. And so I think the thing that is the most important is that organizations somehow have gotten themselves to a point where it's not valuable to them. So then suddenly you have a major service provider that goes down. Think about this, right? You've got a North American audience, yeah, right? So it's not just about Rogers in Canada, right? Verizon will go down at some point. AT&T will go down at some point. It's just nothing lasts forever. And we have become so acclimatized and so used to everything lasting forever that we've taken it all for granted. So I think everybody in every organization needs to rethink how they deal with business continuity. And I was talking with a colleague of mine, and it was literally continuity as an essential service. Right? I think
Yeah.
that is a very big deal, and I think that's something that all organizations should start thinking about. It's something that we do out of the box. There are a number of other companies that do it as well too. I think we do it better, but that's just me being biased.
You're allowed to be. You're allowed
But
to be.
yeah, fair enough, fair enough. But continuity as an essential service is something that we need to start thinking about, right? This means not just business continuity for voice and for hosted PBX and for video calls and WebEx and that kind of stuff, but it means things like 911,
Yeah.
411, municipal services, the things that will really save people's lives, the things that keep businesses alive. Absolutely. I don't know how many billions of dollars were lost between Thursday and Friday between all the businesses that were out of service.
Or how
I
many
can tell
businesses are
you,
going to lose money because of it, just because of it, it pointed out their weaknesses, right?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So this is a real turning point in terms of what we do next. But I think part of it comes down to an essential core of how we view things. And how we view things, to me, is what do we take for granted right here in our core, right? And what do we take for granted in our core? Those are the things like we expect to have communications. We expect to have Wi-Fi when we show up in a hotel. We expect to have Wi-Fi when we show up on a cruise ship. We expect those things. And that expectation is what makes us weak. So I think what I believe is that if organizations could suddenly come together and figure out how they want to be in the next day, the next week, the next month, the next year, and how they want to perform, they can choose, and it's a choice, right? But they can choose to be better and do things better.
Yeah.
For
I,
themselves.
I talk about the future a lot, and you and I have spoken about, 5G technology and the future of medicine, being able to have a doctor in BC perform a surgery in Montreal. The
Absolutely.
thought of something like that being interrupted by something that happened on Friday, it changes the entire scope in which I even have that conversation now.
Yeah,
Because
it's terrifying.
ways. So yeah, my issue is I can't park and I can't get home in 28 minutes. But someone could be on an operating table, having surgery conducted that they think is going to save their life, and suddenly, oh, sorry, the internet's gone. We can't finish that. You're about to die on the table. That's scary. That's scary because that could be me
It
on
is.
that table in 10 years from now,
But
needing that surgery.
but it's not just that, right? So if you would look at it from a telemetry standpoint, right, because it is all about telemetry. So it's how do we get information from one point to another? So it could be a plane to an air traffic controller. It could be what you just stated, like health care
Yeah.
to a surgery or a surgeon that's doing a remote surgery, let alone being in front of actually on the patient themselves. Could be Uber going off the road. It could be like anything like that, right? I mean, these are things that we don't realize how much redundancy we actually need. And the reason people don't pay for redundancy is it's an insurance policy.
Yeah.
But we all personally pay for insurance. We pay for health insurance, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I want to take care of my kids. If I die, if I get disabled, or whatever the case may be, I want to make sure my kids are taken care of. So why do we have a completely different attitude from the same people and organizations that will pay for insurance, but won't actually pay for proper insurance for their businesses? And this is the kind of society that we've built. And I think it's a little bit of a bleed off of 1999, 2000, 2001 when we had the crash,
Yeah.
where everyone was just like, yeah, we're going to just stay away from all this stuff because security, you don't smell it, you don't see it, costs a lot of money. Redundancy, you don't smell it, you don't see it, costs a lot of money, and I only need it when I need it. So everybody forgot to need it, but it's also like the pandemic. We also forgot to wash our hands for 100 years. So
You bring up an interesting point there, because I spent some time on Friday, on with Bell Mobility, getting a second, SIM card on my phone active and running, so that I'm at least able to make sure I can deliver what I need to my clients. But maybe there's a new level of service that needs to exist across everybody, which is almost like an insurance policy, where you're not going to pay $60 a month for something you're not using. Maybe you're paying $20 a month, but when you do use it, it's gonna expand as you need it. Literally, an insurance policy that a lot of companies could instate for that purpose exactly. So you don't feel like you're spending, okay, I'm doubling what I'm spending. I'm spending a smaller amount, but when I'm going to use it, I'm going to benefit from it. But when I'm not, they're going to benefit from it. I'm going to feel less likely or less apprehensive to give somebody my money. On my side, it's cost of doing business. I got to do it. But I can understand how somebody who just wants to make sure they can get in touch with their loved ones might not want to spend another $60 a month for a whole new line. But maybe there can be a tier that comes out of this. That could be an insurance policy for other providers.
And you're 100% right. I mean, and that's what we do with Turnium, right? I mean, it's literally carrier diversity, and you put as many connections in as you want and as many diverse carriers, and it will create a unique tunnel that works just for you. And so then you can get from core to edge and back to other edge points. So whether it's branches or whether it's cloud or whatever the case may be, use your own hardware, et cetera, that kind of stuff. And that's exactly what we do, right? So it's interesting, the timing in terms of all of this. Mm-hmm. Especially that we've gone to the markets now as well too. So it's kind of neat. But at the same token, it's a very serious challenge that we have, or not we, but the challenge that the world has, because it doesn't just exist in Canada because Rogers went down.
No, right? This is worldwide. This is everywhere. Anybody can go down.
Any business, exactly. Anyone can go down.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I'm a firm believer that nothing lasts forever.
Correct.
So if it can go down, it will at some point. And so, bulletproofing yourself for that, I think, is an amazing thing that needs to be done. But people have to realize that it's not just Canada. It's not just Rogers. I mean, I know we're picking on Rogers today, but it's not just them.
It could have been insert Telecom here, right? It could have been any
telecom exactly.
Going down
it could have been anyone in any country, and any CLEC as well too, because the CLECs are buying from the ILECs. So the CLECs are buying from the ILECs. If the ILEC goes down, the CLECs go down as well too, right? So you've got a cascading challenge here and a cascading problem.
Well, hopefully we, people take a look at themselves internally and say, okay, is this, lack of this service, lack of connectivity, is it something that cost me money? Is it something that hurt my business? And if so, then they're definitely in the category of businesses that need to call companies like Turnium and make sure they have solutions in place there. I'm sure there's mom and pop stores that, survived just fine, and people who took the day off of social media and enjoyed the beautiful weather. But we'll definitely be continuing to have this conversation, I think, down the road, especially, have you on again and talk about Turnium itself and talk about some of those solutions and how they work, because I think that there's a lot of jargon that's thrown out, especially over the past couple of days, that people are still trying to wrap their heads around and determine whether they actually need it or not.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm happy, Mark, to help you distill all that and sort of bring it to an understandable level. So anytime.
Well, thank you for interrupting your vacation. Sandeep Panesar, again, EVP of Strategic Alliances for Turnium Technology Group, turnium.io, correct?
TTGI.io.
TTGI.io, awesome. And of course, Marketing Advisory Council for the Linux Foundation. Thank you for being here. We'll catch you again on another episode of Your Tech Report. Thanks, Sandeep.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.